I felt good when I drank too, but it was so temporary, right? So is it worth the trade-off of the next day? And maybe even the next day, you're still feeling, hungover. So it lowers your vibration. So I always felt really great when I drank. I was a happy drunk. Like I would be like having fun. I loved everybody. I was high vibing. Maybe I was in the vortex when I was drinking. I don't know. In the vortex is just means like you're like the highest level of your bliss and joy. And I felt great, but it was so temporary, maybe 3 hours. Is that really worth the trade-off? And that's something everybody needs to ask themselves.
This is By Joey Joanne Season 2. I'm your host, Joanne Chan, and every Wednesday we bring you inspiring stories, powerful message, and fun conversations with me and my special guests and friends, and it's my personal mission to empower you to live and lead a life with joy. This podcast is for you if you're looking for more joy, courage, passion, and purpose in your life. Now let's dive into today's episode and get ready to laugh, learn, and live your life to the fullest. After decades spent in the corporate world juggling being a single mom while secretly battling addiction to alcohol, food, and toxic relationships, today's guest is now an expert in spiritual recovery, and she's passionate about empowering others to live their best life. She's the creator of Addiction Recovery with the Law of Attraction, a unique deck of cards used to help people recover from addictions and destructive habits. She's also an international best-selling author in multiple categories, including healthy relationships and leadership training. And she's here today to help you heal addictions and transform relationships, including the one with yourself. So ladies and gentlemen, tell me welcoming the spiritual and transformational life coach and founder of Day One Life Coaching, Mary Beth Strado.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. I appreciate it.
So excited to have you here, and I love talking to you. I mean, we had our little pre-chat before the interview. I was just getting so excited to know about your story and your background. So how did you get into addiction initially? Like, how did you get into addiction with alcohol, food, toxic relationships? How did it all happen?
Yeah, I think a lot of addiction starts with trauma and things from childhood, actually. And for me, I always had this generalized anxiety because I think it started, if I'm going to be honest, doing all of my shadow work that I've done over the years, I think it started with my parents' divorce when I was only 5 years old and abandonment issues that led to anxiety. So I really feel like when I started drinking very young, like my first drink was 11 years old when I was on vacation with my friend. Now I didn't like start drinking regularly or anything, but I remember drinking and I was like, wow, this is the answer, because I had social anxiety and it just calmed all of my anxieties. And for me, it felt like medicine almost, like this is the cure for my anxiety. So that's kind of, I didn't start drinking regularly till I was like 14, which is still really young, right? But all of my friends were drinking. This world glamorizes drinking and it's fun and you're cooler if you drink. So it started with anxiety for me, to answer your question, really back a long time ago. I'm 50 years old. So this was, back when I was 11. So I had a long drinking career of over 30 years.
I cannot tell that you are 50 years old. Come on.
Oh, thank you so much.
And what is your secret? I don't know.
Do you know what? It's funny. I actually quit drinking when I was 45 years old. So that's 5 years ago. And I hit my 5-year point where I have been alcohol free. And I literally told myself before I quit drinking, when I stop drinking, I'm going to start aging in reverse. And, as a law of attraction coach, I believe that we can have this effect on our bodies. We have a mind-body connection. And I really think that alcohol ages you and not drinking can make you younger, right? Like when we take all of these toxins out of our body, and alcohol really does a lot of damage with our hormones. And that's when I really started noticing things is, in my mid 40s, women, we have a lot of crazy things going on with our hormones, and alcohol dysregulates them. And I wasn't able to sleep very well anymore. And getting alcohol out of my system really regulated me, and my hormones are back online again, working properly, and that makes you more youthful. So, you guys, I want people to know that you don't have to have a rock bottom to quit. You could just be, it could be vanity reasons. You could just be like, wow, my skin's looking dry. I'm gaining weight, because it does make you gain weight. It creates insulin resistance. So and you're not sleeping as well. No one gets a good quality sleep when they drink, because what your body does is, this is the science behind it. It creates stimulants in your body, because alcohol is a depressant. So your body creates stimulants to counteract that depressant. And then the depressant wears off about 3 a.m, usually. Usually like 4 or 5 hours after your last drink. Then you're just like wide awake, like, oh my gosh. And you feel like a little anxious. So it was starting to give me that anxiety every time I drank, even if I only had 1 or 2 glasses of wine. Red wine was my favorite. I really wasn't this, I never had a rock bottom. I just knew way too much about the law of attraction. As a law of attraction teacher, I no longer wanted to self-sabotage. I wanted to set my next day up with success. I wanted to feel my best every day. And I knew that I was self-sabotaging, and alcohol was no longer serving me. So that is why I decided to quit. You don't have to have a rock bottom to improve your life.
Wow, yeah, because I was about to ask, like, did you have a moment like this is it, I'm quitting, right? But you just said that you didn't have a rock bottom moment. There's still a moment that you make the decision. So is it law of attraction? Like when you learn about law of attraction, you decided, okay, now I'm gonna work on this, this is what I'm gonna focus on right now. Then you start building a better, healthy habits and life. Is that how it started?
I wish I could say it started when I first learned about law of attraction. I kind of always noticed law of attraction. I didn't know the name of it, but my whole life, even as a kid, I noticed, wow, when I think and feel this way, this happens. And when I think and feel this way, this happens. Like, I noticed there was, consequences to my thoughts and my feelings, and that I would attract certain things and repel certain things. I could tell that as a kid, and I would talk to people and nobody seemed to know what I was talking about. In 2006, I saw the movie The Secret. I don't know if you're familiar with The Secret. Okay. And I was like, this is what I've been telling everybody right here. This is like, I knew this was a thing. And so that's when I really started to dig into it. But I didn't quit until I was ready to quit. Like, I really believe that some of us, we have to be sick and tired of being sick and tired. And it did mess with my sleep, like I said earlier. And I just wanted to feel better, look better. And I incorporated all of these when I did get sick and tired of myself, of, waking up and not feeling my best. I started to use all of the spiritual techniques that I know about, that helped me. And it was an overnight thing. It was like slow and slow and slow, but eventually I was just like, I'm done. I am done. So there was a buildup to it. I had given it like 30-day alcohol free. Like, I would do things like that, but then I would always go back to it. So there was definitely an energetic shift when I was 45, and I was like, I'm done. I knew that I knew I was never going back to it. And I haven't had any temptation since. So it was a shift for real. So, and I incorporated all of the things that I knew that I should have been doing all along. Grounding, breath work. Grounding is also known as earthing. So when we connect ourselves to the earth, like, we need to be barefoot, but we all wear shoes all the time. So I go outside every day, even when it's cold, and I make sure I'm grounded, because that really helps you with temptation, and it helps you stay healthy and balance your body. I think breath work is super important. Breath work's easier for people to do than regular meditation if you have anxiety. So, because it's really hard to quiet your mind completely if you're a naturally anxious person the way I am. I've been diagnosed with anxiety and depression, OCD, all the things, ADHD, but I'm not medicated. I've taken care of all of these issues just by the spiritual techniques, to be honest with you. So yeah, I'm not on any medication at all. And it's been beautiful. Like, I feel amazing every day.
So when you decided to quit, I'm sure you still have friends or even your family gathering during Christmas. Like when people drink, what do you tell them? Like when they offer you a drink, just one glass, right? What do you tell them? How do you turn down their offer? Because I think that's gonna be an issue with a lot of people listening to this.
That's a great question. And it is so funny because alcohol is the only drug that we have to justify not taking, right? It's interesting. So, people always want to know your story. Like, why? Why? Because they can't imagine not drinking. And I've got to be honest, I was the same way. When I was a drinker, I wouldn't have even dated anybody who didn't drink. I certainly didn't have friends who didn't drink. And I thought it was weird and they were boring or lame. Like, what? You don't drink? So I get it. I get it. This is definitely a transformation that happens, right? So I just tell them the truth. Like, I feel way better when I don't drink, and alcohol always lowered my vibration. It's a lower vibrational substance that my body started rejecting. Honestly, I think with all my law of attraction work, I was vibrating so high that the alcohol was no longer a vibrational match. And I am not the only one who this happened to. Like, there's a lot of people I know who, when they start doing the spiritual work, their body starts rejecting it. Like, you can't even drink it anymore. And it started to get to that point with me where just one glass would cause like severe
Wow.
issues with me. It was interesting.
So what are some of the signs other than alcohol? It could be like you mentioned, toxic relationships, even food, even social media we talk about. And you mentioned something really interesting, which is overthinking also is a form of addiction, right? So what are some signs that people might not realize indicate that they have an addiction, even beyond, like beyond alcohol, like drug, food, all sort of things?
Yeah, and overthinking, like you said, that's one that if you have anxiety, you might obsess about things like me, and you get to that point, and that's where all the interrupting patterns in your brain, that's where that really helps. I do some one-on-one coaching to help people with that. So because there are ways to get out of these so-called mental disorders without medication, and that's one of the things that I help people do because I know it works. With subconscious reprogramming, there's neuroplasticity, right? So to answer your question, I would ask yourself, if you're listening, ask yourself, what is something that I have a pattern of doing, like for a week? What's something I can't live without for a week? And but it's having a negative effect on my life, but I still keep doing it. That's your definition of an addiction. So negative thinking's an addiction. Overthinking is an addiction. Like you mentioned, social media, scrolling. Like, look, I still have that tendency because it's part of my job to be on social media. So I literally, when I catch myself, if I'm scrolling too much and taking too much time, I put my phone in another room, so that you got to catch yourself with these patterns, and just switch them, and your brain will start to adjust. But anything that you can't give up for a week, and it really makes you, but it's also destructive in your life. So alcohol, a huge one for a lot of people. Pornography is one for a lot of men, especially and women, but mostly men. So that's one that, and it really destroys families. It destroys people's lives. We laugh about it, but it's really not good. And it ruins intimacy for couples. Because men can start to think, oh, well, this is real life. But it's not, it's acting. These people are acting, and then they want their wives to have that. That's not intimacy. That's porn is different. So, there's gambling. Some people gamble a lot. That's one that we don't talk about. My dad had that problem. We have a lot of addiction in my family. It can definitely be genetic. So if you have an addictive personality, you could be someone who is either a moderator or an abstainer. And for me, I was not good at moderating. Like I would, I want more. If it's good, if it's food addiction, like you don't have a stop button. Like this is good, I want more. And there's some people that can moderate, but I'm just better at abstaining because I was that way with sugar. Sugar is very addictive. And I would just I didn't want just one cookie. I wanted the whole sleeve of cookies, you know? So for me, I'm just better not getting started on the cookie at all. So I just abstain, and some people are just better with that, and other people can moderate. I think 25% is the number, the statistic they give, that they can have a reasonable amount of alcohol and never go over a reasonable amount of cookies or ice cream, whatever it might be, and they can just stop. That's only 25%. So 75% of the people are more like me, where we have a hard time stopping when something's good, and alcohol dumbs down our brain, right? So we get clouded judgment. That makes it extra hard to stop.
Yeah, especially when it becomes a form of habit. It's like every Friday night, just go out, hang out with friends and drink, or, party. Could be an addiction as well. It becomes your part of your life, like a lifestyle and habit. And we all know how hard it is to break a habit. So what would you say is the first step? From what I know, it should be self-awareness, right? Catching yourself, like you said, that should be the first step. So what is the next step after that? Like once you're aware, okay, this is my addiction, what do I do next?
For me, seeking help, right? Like, so even as a coach, I think a lot of coaches, we hire coaches, we know how valuable it is. It's taking quantum leaps instead of just baby steps, right? So I hired a coach. I also just immersed myself in things about alcohol. There's a really great book called Alcohol Explained by Dr. William Porter. And he talks a lot about things that like I didn't know it was alcohol affecting my sleep. I just thought it was hormones. I didn't know. So that just learning I would immerse yourself in the negative effects of alcohol, because we kind of are in denial about it's a carcinogen. It causes cancer, and we can do all these things. We take supplements and take care of ourselves, go to the gym, but then we're drinking ethanol, which is a known carcinogen. It's right up there, the same classification as nicotine. It's like, so smoking, it causes cancer just the same level as smoking, and nicotine causes cancer. And there's something else that is up there with it that's, yeah, I can't remember what it is right now, of course, but it's really, really classified as cancer causing, and we kind of all ignore it. People who drink alcohol are way more likely to get like breast cancer, throat cancer, different types of cancers, but we just ignore it because everybody does it. So I think getting yourself out of denial and really looking into the negative effects of alcohol instead of just focusing on, well, hey, it's fun and all my friends are doing it. And that's called a weekend warrior, by the way. People who, they just go every weekend, and as you get older, I don't know how old your audience is, but as you get older, it affects you more. Like there's some of my friends, a lot of my friends still drink, and they're still friends with me, and I can go out with them and not drink and still have fun, and they still invite me out, and it doesn't bother me at all. But it took a while to get there, I'm going to be honest. So, a lot of my friends will have 3-day hangovers at 50 years old, right? Like it's not just the next day. It's because our bodies just can't handle its cumulative effect, right? It definitely affects you more as you get older.
Yeah, I remember when I was younger, like in my 20s, I can just go party and go back at like 5 a.m. in the morning, like the next morning, right? And did not feel anything the next day. But now
Yep.
midnight, I want to sleep. And I feel sleepy. So I think I totally agree. Yeah.
I was the same way. And I think that's why I didn't quit drinking until I was 45, because until I didn't even make the connection. That's why I want people to know, like, hey, if you're having these issues, even like dry skin, like I was getting like this really dry skin, eczema, these autoimmune issues came up. People don't realize that when we're drinking toxins, it's going to show up on our body. Like some people get cystic acne and things like that. They don't relate it to the alcohol, but since alcohol destroys your endocrine system, and your endocrine system controls everything in your body, so it is the alcohol. Yeah, it's imbalancing you in general, and we blame other things, I think, and we don't really realize that. Wow. So I think educating yourself, anything about alcohol and the negative effects that you have, might help you be like, wow, this really isn't serving me any longer. And like I said, if you want to just feel good, like I knew too much about how important it is to feel good. With the law of attraction, it's not even just our thoughts, it's our feelings that we're putting out there into the universe. The feelings is, and if you don't feel good, you're going to attract crap, you know. You're not going to attract as well because it's more about feeling than your thoughts. And a lot of people don't know that's how vibration works, is, and so you can't fake it. You can't BS the universe, right?
Okay, why people argue that, okay, I feel good when I'm drinking. Like, I feel good, I'm happy, I'm joyful, I'm free, But again, you say that alcohol lowers our vibration. So when people say, if I feel good when I drink, how does it work
That's a
exactly?
great question. I felt good when I drank too, but it was so temporary, right? So is it worth the trade-off of the next day? And maybe even the next day, you're still feeling, hungover. So it lowers your vibration. So I always felt really great when I drank. I was a happy drunk. Like I would be like having fun. I loved everybody. I was high vibing. Maybe I was in the vortex when I was drinking. I don't know. In the vortex is just means like you're like the highest level of your bliss and joy. And I felt great, but it was so temporary, maybe 3 hours. Is that really worth the trade-off? And that's something everybody needs to ask themselves. Is that worth the trade-off of having bad sleep, having some, things going on physically with your body? The drinking a carcinogen, literally ethanol is poison. It is. We can't deny that. It's undeniable. So is it worth that trade-off of all of the harm that it causes just for 3 hours of fun? And then the next day, because I do think like it's really fun for 3 hours, and then people start to go downhill after that. And then the next day, just being at half mast, you're just not at your best. So I'm talking about the next day. I totally agree with you. It's so fun while you're drinking. I mean, that's why it's addictive. That's how they get you.
Right. Yeah, that's all right. Yeah. So you created the addiction that you were showing me with the deck of cards. You created that. Can you explain why you created this and how does it work? How does law of attraction supports people with overcoming addictions?
So the deck is a law of attraction deck. It has 44 cards in it. It actually was published as a book because it has so much content. So each morning, someone would pick someone who's trying to quit an addiction, even if it's just trying to make their life better. Every card is a good card in there, but they pick a card. You focus on, and when you shuffle and you pick a card, and that card is going to be your message for that day. And every card teaches law of attraction. Every card has a spiritual method technique that I use personally to quit and stay off of alcohol, so we don't relapse. So it keeps you from that temptation. You follow the front has a beautiful picture. I had an artist. I didn't like, I explained to her what I wanted, and she was amazing. It was magical. Like she took all of the visuals out of my brain. And mine would have been stick figures if I drew it. But so there's beautiful original artwork, and then the back of the card has the content. So it might tell you, it tells you what to do for the day. So it might be breath work, it might be exercise, meditations in there, like all of it. So it gives you your personal message and teaches you law of attraction. And it always works. You're always going to pick the message that you need. One of my favorite cards in there is serve others, because I really feel like when you get out there and serve other people, which, I love that. I love that my job is that, like it's my passion to help other people. And it's wonderful to make that your career. But if you don't have that as your career, what you could do is look up ways to volunteer to do things, because getting out of your own head and reaching out and helping other people is a wonderful way to get distracted enough to where you don't have those temptations. Anytime you're quitting an addiction, you need to replace it with a healthy addiction. Mine was going to the gym at night. Instead of happy hour, I started going to the gym and became a little bit obsessed with it for a while. But now I'm balanced out and it's all good.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. Like instead of going to a party, go to a gym, right? And because the gym is usually empty on a Friday night, I believe. So it's so cool.
It
So
is.
I love that. So you mentioned that if people want to buy the card, do you ship? Like, how do they get it?
That's a great question. Thank you for asking. So they would go to my my website, which is day1lifecoaching.com, DAYONE, lifecoaching.com. And right now, I haven't been able to find a cheap way to ship internationally. So it's pretty expensive. It costs way more than my cards cost to ship it internationally. So United States right now is the only like inexpensive way to purchase them, unless you're just really wanting to pay for the shipping. I get it. So I apologize for that. I'm looking into ways. But yeah, day1lifecoaching.com, and that's where you could purchase my cards. For your listeners, they could use coupon code TRANSFORM. Type the word TRANSFORM. That should give you $10 off of the cards.
Beautiful. Love that. Thank you so much for that generous offer. Of course, I'll put your links in the show notes as well. So yeah, why is it called Day One Life Coaching? I'm just curious.
So there, because if you're starting a good habit or breaking a bad habit, there's always a day one where we make that decision, where we know, where we have that energy shift, where we become committed. Because a lot of people think motivation can get you there. And I'm going to tell you, motivation is not your thing, because motivation goes up and down, up and down. We are never always motivated. Olympic athletes are never always motivated. We need to rely on discipline and commitment. So it's that day one is when you finally realize I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I'm ready to be committed. That's your day one.
Right. So listeners, like people who are listening to this right now, make this your day one to breaking whatever, bad habit, starting to build healthy habits, quitting alcohol, anything. Make today your day one while we are listening to this. So the last thing that I want to talk to you about is the other concept that you like to discuss, which is conscious relationship versus toxic relationship. And you were addicted to toxic relationship as well in the past. So talk to us about that.
Yeah, a lot of that was I didn't realize that I was a people pleaser for so many years. And it's something that comes out of trauma, I think. Like, it's almost like you're so used to, like, maybe you had a parent who was very difficult and you're like try to please your parent all the time. And, so then that pattern continues in your adult relationships. Like, well, it's almost like you attract the most difficult people in your life, which is toxic people usually. Because that's what you're familiar with. That's how a parent or both parents were difficult. So then you start attracting that on a subconscious level, and you're like, well, I'm going to make it work this time, because that's what our subconscious mind does to us. Is we want to fix things. Like, it's familiar, especially when it's a familiar dynamic in a relationship. So I was a big people pleaser. So, and very much an empath. So I would always attract, narcissistic people because I was easy to manipulate for a long time because I wanted to avoid conflict. I wanted everyone to be happy. And, in learning about conscious relationships, what I learned is we're really being inauthentic when we're people pleasers. We're betraying ourselves, number one. And we are not actually being honest because we're telling people whatever they want to hear instead of saying like how we really feel, because we're so afraid of conflict. We're so afraid this person isn't going to like me or they're going to leave me. Like Gabor Mate says I don't know if you know Gabor Mate, but he says that when you're a child and you don't feel wanted, you're going to make sure that you're needed. So that tends to carry over into your adult relationships. And a conscious relationship is one where you don't have the drama. It's not the constant roller coaster ride, ups and downs. That is very addictive, by the way, because the roller coaster ride feels passionate, and you start to, the chemicals in your brain that are being triggered are the same ones that are triggered by drugs and alcohol, to be honest with you. So it gets addictive to be in those relationships, and it starts to feel boring when you're in a healthy relationship because you're not used to it. And you think they don't care about me because they're not jealous, but they're actually the healthy relationship, but we don't know. So I got through all of that, and I help guide people with my one-on-one coaching. I get a lot of relationships are hard. So I get a lot of them. So in a conscious relationship, it's all about finding two people together who are willing and able to have healthy communication, help each other grow. You uplift each other. Anyone listening, if you're with someone who feels more like an enemy than your best friend, you're in the wrong relationship. You should feel like you're with your best friend. This is your partner, and you should uplift each other and not be like, have a power struggle, fighting all the time, or, trying to have this roller coaster ride of putting each other down to make yourself feel better. That's very toxic behavior.
So since we were still talking, we are still on the law of attraction topic. I'm sure this is the listener, like this is the question they have in mind right now. They want to ask you right now, how can we start attracting a healthy, conscious, loving relationship?
Like you said earlier, self-awareness is huge. So being mindful, just really catching yourself with your thoughts, paying attention to your thoughts. And here's something that most people don't know. They think, okay, well, we attract what we are. Well, that's not always true. That's partly true, but we also attract anything that we have an energetic spark with. So we are like, why am I attracting this? Well, guess what happened to me for many years before I knew this? I kept attracting liars, cheaters, narcissists. Why? Well, once I was, in a toxic marriage, and I kept attracting it because I was so angry and judgmental of these people I wasn't a liar. I wasn't a cheater. I wasn't a narcissist. So why am I attracting this? Well, I was judging them and I was still angry about it. So you attract anything that you have a spark with, an energetic spark. So I kept on attracting the same type of people until I got to the point of forgiveness and compassion for these people. Because, when you think about it, everybody's born with a clean slate, right? And it's hard when you're in it, when you're with someone or you have just recently been betrayed and abused by a narcissist. It's really hard to get to this point, to think even I'll never get there. But you can. You can do the work, whether it's with the coach or on your own, by just really immersing yourself into experts and people. There's a lot of free information on YouTube, right? But you can get to a point of doing like a judgment detox. So you stop attracting things that you're judging. And people don't realize a lot of their life, they're attracting things because they're judging it, because they're so angry. It keeps showing up in their life. Anything we give attention to shows up in our life. So it doesn't necessarily mean you are that way. You're not the liar and the cheater, but you're attracting it because you're judging them and thinking about them and focusing on them too much. So a lot of it's just as we have a point of attraction, and that's why it's all different. People think law of attraction doesn't work for me. It only works for other people. That's a very limiting belief. We want to get rid of it. Works for everybody. But it works in both ways. They think, oh, I only attract positive. We also attract the negative things too. Like it works both ways. Unless we're paying attention and we become deliberate creators. We got to be deliberate creators of this. And so the way we do that is by knowing that we have a point of attraction that's different from everybody else, because it's all of our childhood programming, everything that we, from the day we were born on up, that's included in our point of attraction. And then our momentum that we have on a certain subject. So that subject could be relationships or money or health. We all have a different momentum. So we're going to get different results. So you could have, like, I have an excellent momentum with money, but I have not the best momentum with relationships because of my history. And, so you could have a bad momentum with relationship. Now it's good, but, for a long time it was bad. And I kept attracting things I didn't want. And then the final thing is, how do you feel today? What's your vibration today? So you've got childhood programming plus your momentum on a certain subject, and it's different for different subjects. And finally, how do you feel right now? So that all establishes your point of attraction. And you could see how individual that is. That's why I like doing one-on-one coaching with people, because I can really catch it. It's hard for us to see ourselves. But it's easy for other people to see you and catch you in your limiting beliefs and your subconscious patterns. It's easy for me to see that in somebody, but it's harder for us to see ourselves.
Yes, because they believe it to be true, right? That's what they know to be true, right? They think
And it's subconscious. By definition, we're not conscious of it.
Yeah. Yeah, beautiful. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. Is there anything else that you really want to talk about? Perhaps I didn't ask you, didn't let you.
I mean, I just think that I would just want people to understand that you don't have to have a rock bottom. Don't wait just to feel better. My main regret is how long I waited until I was 45 years old to stop drinking because my life changed 180. Everything improved. My money improved. My health improved. I do think my looks improved, in over 5 years. And that's for my vain people like me. I am vain, I admit it. And there's whatever works, whatever it takes for you to make that decision. If it's vanity, who cares? You want to lose some weight. That's a great reason to quit. It's a
Mm.
great reason. There's nothing wrong with that.
You are so inspiring. I love that. Yeah. Because I still drink once in a while socially, I think I'm inspired like today, like I'm gonna stop drinking. I'm just gonna see what
Just
happens.
test it out.
Yeah,
Test
yeah,
it out. See how you feel. And like I know that the first time I tested it out, I felt amazing. And it's so crazy. That's how I knew I was addicted is I went back to it, even though I felt so amazing. So that was because I still had some emotional, mental work that I needed to do on myself before it was actually done.
yeah. Now, as you know, we always end with our final five rapid fire questions. So these are the five questions that I ask all my guests at the end of the show. Now, are you ready?
Fire away.
All right. The first question is, oh my God, I think you answered this question already. Like you just answered this question. What is one thing you wish you knew earlier?
That alcohol is straight up poison and to stay away from it because your life will be so much better once you ditch it.
Yeah, I knew it. The second question, it's kind of repeating, but anyway, if you could live your life all over again, what would you do differently? Like all over again from day
Well,
one.
I can give a different answer to this. Everything else is still true, but I think that what I would do differently is have more self-love, more compassion for myself.
Mm.
Because I think that most of us have that problem where we don't feel worthy of things. And I just think when we're worthy of things, everything in our life improves. Once we give ourselves love and stop being so self-critical, that's actually just limiting beliefs. We're limiting ourselves from having amazing things show up in our life because part of law of attraction, you really need to love yourself so you can attract well. Like, how are you going to attract an amazing, fantastic relationship when you don't even love yourself?
Wow, that's so powerful. I love, love, love that. That really hit me. The next question is, what are you trying to learn? What is something you're trying to learn or curious about right now?
You know, this has to do with my career, so this is good. But if you probably have a lot of entrepreneurs or solopreneurs like me listening, visibility, just like that's why I'm so glad to be on your show. Like just getting visibility, people spreading my message. I really want to get in front of more people because I know there's so many people who are just like me and maybe don't recognize addiction. They don't even understand the definition and what it really means. And that if I could get in front of more people, I could help more people and save them decades so they don't have to wait as long as I waited.
Right, nice. The next question is, if you could go back and relive one day of your life, what would it be?
Ooh, relive one day of my life. Oh gosh. I think it would be the day that I had my son, that I gave birth, because things went wrong. I mean, he turned out fine, but like there was just things that I know now that I didn't know then. And I ended up having a C-section and and it was just kind of traumatic. I just wish I could relive that day. And because the trauma kind of trumped the birth, right? And it was just like, I would love to relive it so it could be just more of a focused on the beautiful experience that it really was.
Well, I love that. Thank you so much for being honest.
That's what it is.
The last question is, what brings you the greatest joy?
You know, so my son, and he's 21 now, which is crazy. He brings me so much joy and also helping others. Just really, I love my job. And I was in the corporate world forever. And so just being like the 7 years of being a coach has been so life changing because every day I get to wake up and do something that I love and I'm passionate about. I could not say that about the corporate world. Sorry.
Yeah, definitely not the corporate world. Thank you so much for answering all the questions, by the way. Now tell my people, I know the website is where they can purchase the card, but where is the best way for them to connect with you? Is it on Instagram, LinkedIn?
Yeah, you can find me. I'm on all the platforms. Instagram. I think it's day one life coaching, but it's day_1_life_coaching. And you'll find me. You could probably also search me by my name, Mary Beth Schroeder, SCHRUDDER, on all my platforms. I think you could find me that way on every platform. Facebook, I'm really active on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, actually. So any of those. I have a YouTube where it's called Spiritual Transformation Podcast with Mary Beth. I have a lot of interviews on there. Lately, I've taken a break from the interviews and I'm just giving my coaching, spiritual upliftment, little short messages to people on there. So, but I am going to get back into interviews ultimately.
I saw your YouTube. You've done amazing interviews. Like I watched some of them. It's amazing, and you
Oh,
have
thank
like
you.
thousands of views, right? That's incredible. You talk about visibility, right? Now you have a lot of visibility.
Well, you know what? It's because they were popular. And so you have really popular people on your show and then you get, a lot of views, turns out. So yeah, that's what that's from. And then the ones I do by myself, I don't have that many views, but
Oh, come on. You are popular too. And thank you so much for coming on my show. You're
well,
popular.
thank you so much.
Thank you. Now, guys, I know you love today's episode because you are still listening to the very end. So go follow Mary, go to her website. Thank her for coming to our show today. Tell us what is your biggest takeaway from this episode. We would love to hear from you. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss another episode coming to you every Wednesday. And I will always leave you the same way as I leave you with every other episode. Show up, the world needs you and you need you. Thanks for listening, and I wish you all a joyful and amazing day ahead. Thank you again for tuning into Find Joy Joanne podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, take a screenshot and share it on your IG story and tag FindJoyJoanne_podcast so I know you are listening. And leave us a positive review on Apple Podcasts if you haven't already done so. And remember to hit the subscribe button whether you are listening on Spotify, iTunes, Amazon Music, or any of your other favorite platforms. If you love what we are doing and want to become one of our sponsors, you can send me a DM to connect. And thanks for being here. I will see you soon in the next episode.